Absolutely, yeah. So Hamas blaming that what happened at that hospital on an Israeli airstrike, but the Israeli military at first said it had been caused by a failed rocket fired by Hamas. They said afterwards then that the blast was actually caused not by Hamas but by a failed rocket fired by Islamic Jihad. Now, Islamic Jihad, which is, of course, the second biggest militant group in the Gaza Strip, denying all responsibility. Israel, on the other hand, says it has photographic evidence that it's handed to the US. What we do know, of course, is that the Ahli hospital in Gaza City was sheltering thousands of people, people who had been wounded, other people who were seeking a safe place to hide. But the reality is, of course, in Gaza, especially in the northern part of the territory, nowhere is safe for people, and there could still be many more bodies under the rubble.
Andy, early days, but what are the reaction you're feeling there from Israelis?
Well, a lot of Israelis here, actually, they believe what the army says. They point to the fact that missiles fired by groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad have failed in the past, landing on residential buildings in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip, of course, one of the most densely populated areas on the planet. Others say that if the explosion was caused by an Israeli airstrike, then at the very least it must have been a monumental error by the Israeli army, because they say the Israeli military doesn't target hospitals. And then there are other people who say that they don't trust what their government says, so they'd rather wait to hear the conclusions of a third party like the US, for example, before making up their mind.
Andy, where does this leave the diplomacy? Joe Biden, US President, due there in Israel later to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, although that onward trip planned to Jordan to meet with Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Mahmoud Abbas has been cancelled. But this incident changes, doesn't it, the dynamic of the meeting between Biden and Netanyahu?
Absolutely, it does. I mean, this was already an unprecedented visit by a US president. It's now become even more unprecedented, if you like. He'll meet Joe Biden with the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, when he lands in Tel Aviv later this morning. He's also planning to hold a meeting with the Israeli War Cabinet and families of hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza. As you mentioned there, of course, a second part of that trip to Amman, the Jordanian capital, where he was due to meet with Arab leaders, that's already been cancelled. So this trip, which was already a nightmare, I think, before it began, has become even worse for the US president. The fact that a US president would come at such short notice obviously shows how important this crisis is to him. The aim obviously being to prevent it spilling into becoming a wider conflict. Also another big aim, of course, to show the US's unwavering support for Israel. But after what happened at the hospital, Joe Biden is going to have to balance out that support for Israel, of course, with concerns for the welfare of Palestinian civilians living in the Gaza Strip.